Butchulla elder Auntie Marie Wilkinson will be having a chat with Denya Hopkins about the development of Hervey Bay, and in particular, how this has affected the Indigenous people of Hervey Bay, the Butchulla people.
So, can you share any stories of when you were a child living in the Fraser Coast that would reflect what life was like back there?
Well, it was very, very good, lived very quiet, a seaside town, and the only time I'd get very, what's the name, is when Christmas time comes and the people come down, and most of the money had tents, they come from basically Maryborough and all, they come down here and live in, and the skating ring, where the skating at Scarness is? I spent my life since I was 4-year-old on that skating rink. I learned to skate when I was 4-year-old on that skating. They had the roller skates, and I learned to roller skate there with my brothers. I had 5 brothers, which is, there's 4 or 5 brothers. And my older brothers took me on skating and that thing.
Do you think the Fraser Coast region has transformed for the better or for the worse?
I think it's for the better. And what I like about it is not, high-rise buildings down the front and all that. It's like this paddock here, you've got a university on here. And I think that's fantastic. It hasn't got high-rise buildings, and what's the name. And this is what I mean, it's growing. We're pretty lucky considering the way places go. But I think we're pretty lucky that we haven't lost still the bush and the beauty of the. We've still got country with the town, you know what I mean? There's still places.
Are there any changes you'd like to see in the future?
For the place?
Yes.
I think we've gone far enough, darling. You've got a university down here, you've got everything you want. As far as I'm concerned, looking for younger people, about for jobs and things like that, might be different, but they still got a chance. You had to leave here when I was young to get a job. You had to leave Harvey, but there was no work here. You only had hotels and all depends on it, even working in shops and things like that, There wasn't any work for the young people. People had to go away from out of the town.
Okay, so you've commented that dingoes are often fed and treated as pets on Fraser Island. What is your stance on the matter?
People should keep their hands off the dingo and the dingo will leave them alone.
Do you think it puts them at risk?
Of course it does. I mean, we're gone into their territory, darling. Yeah. I've been with the dingo people down here and saved the dingo mob, and I've been upstream and jumping up and down, and even before that I was on the government thing for Fraser Island, because Fraser Island is one of our traditional for our Butchulla people. That's where my grandmother. But it's all Butchulla country, And Fraser Island, I've been on there on the government, running on committees and that, and I keep on saying there should be controlled. What's the name? Drives on the place, right to take their vehicle, but there should be controlled how many can go at any one time, because. You look at it, darling, what sort of an island is it? It's a sand island, isn't it? Yeah. It's only a sand island, and this is what I kept, I've been in that many committees and I said, I like everybody to see it, but not the amount that's going over there. I've seen it deteriorate, and I know a lot of the history from my grandmother, Fraser Island, from my dad, and from all the older people that's gone ahead, and to me, they'll ruin the beauty and the brightness of the place if they don't control tourism. I want people to see it, but only in the controlled circumstances.
Can you tell me anything about how the beaches have changed?
Oh yes, they have. There used to be big sand dunes. Like a build-up of sand, and then, the way you walk on the beach now, it's sort of flat, you walk on the land and then it's flat. Well, there used to be big sand dunes all along there, and they had this, I don't know whether, trees, little trees, not very big trees, but it was very, more so, with a lot of trees, it was well known and everybody raved about it, and they couldn't believe it, to have a tree-lined beach. That's the beauty of Hervey Bay, because a lot of the beaches you get, and I've been to different places over Western, where you walk out from off the land part, and even on the beach, close to the beach, it's very seldom got any trees like you have here. This is really great, you know, the place here, because you could go and sit on there and you're real close to the beach where the kids could play on the beach and you were sitting under a tree there. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's what I think. I used to always speak about Hervey Bay when I left here and I went to Brisbane and I worked at the Mater Hospital. And they'd say, oh, where do you come and tell them? And I said, oh, you know, it's a really pretty place out there. But I said, you know, it's a very quiet place. That's why I want to get away from Hervey Bay. I was only young then. But I love my country, you know. And I'm a direct descendant of the Butchulla people, that traditional owners of this country. My grandmother and all my ancestors from my dad's side. My mother's side was Sri Lankan. Yeah, my mum, but she was born out here, and I think her mother, my grandfather wasn't. He came out from Sri Lanka. And my grandmother, I think she was born out here, but she was from Sri Lanka. Yes, but that was my mother.
Are there any interesting people you met that you learnt valuable experiences from, or anything like that?
Oh, I've met a lot of people, wonderful people in my time, and you know, it's a learning session in life, and you meet a lot of people like that. And I think you gain a bit of knowledge from different people, you know. I've met prime ministers, I've met other people, and I've met, you know, from a governor. She was so good, because she comes from out in the west. She was reared up in Iflicam, one on the Winton line. She was telling me, her and I had to do the Welcome to Country. But different people like that, and even I've met a lot more. I met many people before, but more so now. You know, when I've been, I call them the flavour of the month, you know, the Aboriginal, but also I've met a lot of people being involved, you know, recognition for us Aboriginal people, but being involved with the library and you know, being involved in everything in that thing as a traditional owner, as they call us, the Aboriginal people. And any knowledge that I have, see, I do lectures here for the uni. They gave me a cap and gown just for being an Aboriginal. I said, no. But no, they've been wonderful. The university here, recognition, and also I was able to, you know, I'd come and give lectures. I've had, they had different ones here at the university, at the exchange and all that. One's from America, one from Europe. And I ended up with that lot at my house on Part Harbour Drive. They put them into these universities, and they run their own show and different things like that. They get them, and they had them down at Torquay. Anyways, there's one girl came from Mexico, I think she was, but they were out here under the university. They were university students from over in and they put them into they're going to flat or something from down at Torquay somewhere. One of the ones above the shop or somewhere down. But anyways, these young people, and they had a fend for themselves, but I don't know what sort of money, how they have. But anyways, I had I took them around and done lectures and took them, we got the university got a bus, and we went all over the place. And I took them out on country and took them up past Maryborough and showed them different things. And I think we went over to Fraser Island too, you know. But I showed them the rest of the country. Anyways, I used to do what's the name? So they come up to my house, and I'd make me famous curry and rices, and I'd do, you know, salads. Because I do them now, cooking. I love my mum was a cook down here at all the hotels. So I used to put it on the bench and say, righto, because these only had so much money, you know, like they were under, you know, I reckon it was shot. But anyways, I loved it and they loved it. So they used to come up there, have tea, you know, with me. And then we'd all get in the lounge then. And And it was so relaxed where, they wanted to know. So they were able to write down and tell whatever they wanted to, do their own snow. They were at the university. They came free from that, But I thought that was lovely. I got a letter from one young fellow over and to thank me once it went back, And it was a learning thing for me, but I loved it because they loved it because they could sit down. And at that time I was pretty energetic and used to do a lot of cooking and everything else. And I used to make all my own cakes and Vickies and everything. So they reckoned that they had missed on. But it was so lovely because they were relaxed and they could sit down and, to be, that's how I like people, like even talking to you, where you can sit down and relax, you can say what you want to say and that, where it wasn't sort of an official sort of thing, One young lass, she was an Indian. She had part Indian. And I said, you tell me your story. Don't ask me, I want to know your story. And we said each one of them had a different, where they come from, in their country. And we talk about them learning, I was learning, and that's the beauty of it, how much you can learn from someone else when you're talking to them. That's what I find. Doesn't matter, even coming from another town, that's what you can learn from that other person, That's the beauty of it. And you think that, I only know this, but, your knowledge, what you know, is great for somebody else to know, Hey, that's great.
Okay, can you please tell me about Jack O'Rourke?
Yeah, he wasn't old, I suppose. When I was little, here, and that's how I'm 80 odd now. And this man was living over here in a house. That house was there long before I was born. A high-blocked house, an old Queenslander. And in my lifetime, and I know he was never married and that, but he used to have cattle all here. And this was running from here right through up to Beach Road, all this land here, right through. And he also used to take cattle over. They'd take it over in the barge. They had the barges, and he'd take so many cattle over, do a trip, and then they'd do another trip. And they had an area where he used to leave them over there on Fraser Island, back in those days before any tourists and that were running there. And so you can imagine the wonderful feed, these cattle fatten up over there. And then he'd bring them back and they'd do, what do you call it? I was up on a cattle station with my uncle. I know what it is, but I can't remember where, for all the ticks and big things like that. But then he'd have his cattle here, and he'd sell his cattle to the local butchers here in Maryborough. And anyone that knew him, he used to just breed the cattle. He used to just breed the cattle so that he could sell them to the butchers, Maryborough butchers or Hervey Bay butchers. And I know McClyver's here, the butcher, because they used to buy cattle from him, and he had good cattle too, they were really good. Hey. That was all those days, the cattle were here, the next minute would be on your table, go through our butcher shop. Because they had the slaughter yards out further out here, what they called, so they used to kill their own cattle, had their own slaughter yards. They've done enough size for them, big like a factory things. They were just slaughter yards where they killed the pigs and sheep, and the butchers here had their own slaughter yard just out there, where the Eli Waters.
Oh, yeah.
Eli, where their shops are sitting?
Yeah.
That used to be one of their places where they had that was a big paddock there, and they had the yards there where they had the cattle. And all the cattle, when they get the slaughter yards, McClyver's used to do it themselves. They had I think one of their uncles was a butcher man. He used to live over beyond. His name was Mr. McClyver too. No, we never called anybody by the first time, not kids. But I think, and he used to, for the that was their uncle, I think. He used to do all the slaughtering, you know, kill the cattle. They'd kill the cattle out there, bring them and sell the butcher shops here. You know, there was no refrigerated trucks, mate. They did bring it down. I mean, the butchers had the refrigeration, but they just, that's the cattle, that's how it was here. And this jackal that he ran the cattle. He had cattle. He was more or less like a station owner in a sense. He ran all his cattle, and he had cattle over in Fraser Island too. And so he'd bring them over here when he'd have let them run there, and he'd bring them so many over here and have them here for so long, and he used to supply the butchers here and in Maryborough. But see, he had cattle, so which he used to supply too. And you think about it, didn't have to come from up there in a frozen truck. It was right, the beef was right here for you.
Can you please tell me about the cultural significance and impacts of Fraser Island?
Well, the cultural impact really, my grandmother and great-grandmother, they came from over Fraser Island. But do you know the Butchulla area? Our tribe was called the Butchulla tribe. And our area, it wasn't people because Fraser Island. I'd like to make this clear, that we go right past Childers, Appleby Creek, then that way,
Yes.
and so far south. And if you look at a map with the Aboriginal tribes on it, you'll see how all the land, like all the Hervey Bay here. But Fraser Island, because it's a sound and big thing like that now, Fraser Island. But actually, Fraser Island was part of it. My grandmother, great-grandmother, they come from over Island Way, like that where she was born. They come from there to here, and that. But see, we were removed. The Aborigines were removed from Fraser Island. There's a lot of really very strong history on that Fraser Island, you know. And of course, we were removed off the island. You weren't allowed back on the island. This is back when the first settlers came here. And, you know, this is my country from my dad's side, from my grandmother, great-grandmother. They were brought here, over here. They weren't allowed to go back to the island. Once they came and took over the island from there, you know, they weren't allowed to go back on the island. So, in that way, it's a very sad thing. You only know your history. And my grandmother, that was from my dad's side, my grandmother, I was only tiny, and she used to tell me the stories, you know, little stories, because I was only small at the time. But this is how, she taught me how to do the corroboree, mind you. Well, my cousin, he was the same age as me. And that's how little kids are taught to tell stories. And she went blind. I'm a diabetic myself, but my grandmother had diabetes. And if they want to know the history of that, they'd go to that too. Aboriginal people. And do you know why we got diabetes? Aboriginal people, 90% of them have got diabetes. They're very strong in diabetes. Kills a lot of our people. But that's all over Australia, not just, you know, Aboriginal. Because there's a gene in their body, which you got Aboriginal, will not accept the white man's food and the sugar in the food a certain amount of sugar, yeah. But that's why you'll find a lot of Aboriginal people with diabetes. And that's so, you know, when you think about it, because the food you're only eating natural sweet stuff and not the sweet stuff today. You know, that's the food that's going into your body. You're living off the land. Yes.
Okay, I'm 14 now, so when you were 14, what did you do? What activities were there?
Well, that was a good age for us. You know, we were more or less than, you know, we were involved too. I loved, when I was 14, I was out to work then, going out to work. And previous stuff when I was 13 and after 14, we used to living down here, and at that time, the skating ring, you wouldn't believe it, we only had the picture theatre, one picture theatre, that was the Scarness, and Miss Cox down that, and this I've got to say, mate, first racism that ever hit this town. Because two dads were playing up in the front at the picture theatre, you know, they were just doing a bit of a wrestling and waiting before the picture started. One was an Aboriginal boy Darby, and one was boy Khaki. He was a white lad. And they were all great mates. They were great mates. They were a lot older than me. And they were just having a bit of wrestle down the front, you know, on the front seats down there, waiting for the picture. Anyway, she said to her hitman, I call him the hitman afterwards, he was the bloke that she had in the door there that worked for her. Right, bring them up here. They were banned and weren't allowed back in the picture theatre. This is how bad it was. That's the only entertainment. You had one picture theatre in Hervey Bay, and they weren't allowed back just because they were rascals. And you know, having a bit of a laugh at Yahoo, because those days, you know, you weren't supposed to do that according to her. So, but the irony of it, one was an Aboriginal, one was white. You know, so what did she do? She put on the right-hand side, as you come in, the seats on this side, and the seats on that side, and the aisles going down, and the screams sitting there. And so she reserved 2 back seats, and when it got busy at Christmas time, or Easter time, you'd only have 1 seat left. She'd take 2 seats at the back, on the right-hand side, where anybody that was black, you had a seat in there. This is right. And if anybody wants to, just get the archives of the Maryborough Chronicle to go back. The Maryborough Chronicle got where they lived next door to us too. Bruce Richards, he came home, he was a prisoner of war all those years up in New Guinea at the top there. Changi prison, he was in there for years. And he is an Aboriginal, part Aboriginal, you know. And as an Aboriginal person, he was, and he had this, he'd come home, he was still in his uniform, he hadn't been developed from the war, and he took the girl Sally, which she was white, and she knew the family, you know, he come from here, and so he took her, she was blonde and beautiful, and he took her off to the picture, and what she'd known let her go through, then she went, Miss Clarkson came in and seen what happened. So she sent her doorman, her hitman as we call him, to bring him back up to the front. She told him, no, you sit at the back here, and she says, this is his girlfriend time, but this is his truth. It was all, you've only got to get the archives, go back in the archives, the Maryborough Chronicle, and it's all there, and the hell and of course the court really, she owned it, she had the right. There was no such thing in this place, in this racism. And that was one of the most shocking things that ever happened in this bay, as far as I'm concerned, that this old lady, my mother, from there on, we were never allowed, because if, you know, any Aboriginal people, she had 2 back seats. When it got busy at Christmas time, you'd get down to 1, you know, it was the only entertainment in the bay, it was the only picture theatre in the bay. And good job they had the skating ring, because I used to live on the skating ring anyway. But I used to, when I was tiny, go to the picture theatre, you know, for a matinee once in a blue moon. But apart from that, the picture theatre and the skating ring only opened in the, what's the name, you know, when the summertime was on. But the picture theatre, the picture theatre was the only entertainment in this whole of Hervey Bay for everybody to go to, you know. But after she brought that in for my mother, we didn't see it. I was only very small, you know, going to school. But as much as we wanted to, we were never allowed to go put our feet in. We were never allowed to go back to the picture. My mother wouldn't allow us, on the principle that because we were black, we had to sit, and only because we were black. And when they opened the picture theatre, the Seaview Theatre was opened up there, Mrs. Digger and the family came here and opened up the Puyalba here. Oh man, you should have seen it. that was the most wonderful thing. Wonderful people, you know, and of course the old picture theatre Central one down there didn't last too long once that soon closed down. I know up around Kingaroa and a lot of other places, those places, a lot of people don't know. If they go back in the history of those places, Aboriginal people were banned from this. Not that they'd done anything wrong, but because they were Aboriginals. And I really detested with some of these people coming and said, oh, you know how? And I said, yes, but only up the road there, mate, and only here. Back in that, I'm not saying you are today, but you think of if you want to make a statement on that, think back, not too long back, because you couldn't, you know. My mother, we were not, my parents would not allow us to go to anything where there was a colour bar on, you know. We would not be allowed in there. But, you know, all the community, you know, and all of my life, I've been respected for who I am, for what I am, and I respected the other people, white or black, you know, but I was brought up with it. I could have turned the other way and just hated white people and been a nasty person, you know, and really ever hated, but as far as I was concerned, good, the bad, the ugly, and everyone, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's why we lived on the skating rink. I love the skating anyways. What's the name? Haddo's owned it. I forget the name of the people that owned it before George Haddo bought it, you know. But Haddo's bought it. We had the old wooden floor. And more splinters in your backside, not the legs as you could focus it, yeah. But it was wonderful entertainment, and really speaking, even in those days, it kept the young people, you know, and the younger generations coming through, because the little ones learning and right through, and that was entertainment. And of course that was only in the summertime, now in the wintertime, opening, you know, and that, so, you know, and not only that was out, but that was the only entertainment on it. And then the carnival used to come every Christmas, you know. We thought it was made, you know, but I was older then.
Cultural beliefs shape people's ideologies and morals. What can we learn from the Butchulla people?
Respect for people's country, their land, and their ways. You take people as you find them, and there's lots of good laws which I've lived by, and I've been brought up with, and that, you know, like you show respect, you're on. And especially when you go, you know, not only that, in your own home, for your own self, for your family and everything else, respect for one another. And if you can help anyone, that's one of our very strict, if somebody needs some help in any way, it might be only small, and if you can give it, you give it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you can help anyone that's in distress, or, you know, we're great ones, Aboriginal people have a house full of people, and they're overloaded, 99%, not with their own family, but with others, you know, or, well, in a way, even you're not related, but they could be related, they are related to you somewhere, or some of them are, you know, but they've had problems. You take them into you don't leave anybody out, doesn't matter how, what's the name, you bring them in, and if they've been in big trouble, that's the only way you can help. That's an Aboriginal way. You bring them in, and even though they might want to be, you know, tell you to jump in the lake, they only say it once, they don't say it then because they can't open their mouth, which you give them a good clip of the ear over the ear. But, you know, Lord, doesn't matter what it is. And the younger people, no matter who you are, you must, even though some of the older people, I've met older people that I'd like to back answer or wasn't going to, but that was more, you didn't, if you thought, you know, you were being ill-treated by, whether it's Aboriginal or otherwise, but your place was to go home to your elder, your parents, grandmother, whoever was still here after you at the time, and say, well, so-and-so, and you let it was a serious thing, you know, it was very serious. Even if they didn't speak out of turn and you go home to, it was then up to my mother to go and speak to the other family, the other person, you know, say, well, you know, you don't do that. Not, you very seldom ever struck that, because, you know, but if you did, and the law was, you know, if you was at my auntie's place, or even at one of my friends' places and that, the parents there were the ones that were in charge. If they told you to go home and you to do this and do that, you not to do this and that, you had, especially if you don't know to the family, that you know these people well, and that you had to follow that rule, and you did not go into people's house unless you was asked for it, and you had to know. You know, we had a lot of laws here. You just didn't wander off somebody at the time, if somebody spoke to you in the street and said, "Oh, come along with me," I'd say, "No way, Jose." You know, you just didn't, but you wasn't rude to that person, but you said no, you know. And that's just some of the strict, you know, the laws that we had, when we never had, living in Hervey Bay here, and with children, you know, like having any trouble with anybody walking off with children, and there was a lot of it going on in other places, but you never had it, because most kids were said, you know, you don't do that. You were taught not to, in that way, to respect people, but also you did not wander off with strangers and in a, you know, stranger danger sort of thing. But no, we was all brought up with that, and not only me, but all the other children in the school, you know. So we were pretty lucky in that way, because we didn't have the amount of people around then. You know, you knew everybody who was in it, so yeah. Actually, you had to learn, and Aboriginal children had to learn from before the settlement in Australia, the Aboriginal people, you had to learn from when you was a child what you couldn't do. You were brought up to that, and that's so. You say you learned from when you was little. You know, this is in before Captain Cook or anybody got here, and that's traditionally law that goes down the line now in our people. But with the new generation, new laws to cut, and they're brought up in different what's name, and some of these other younger ones are getting and said, you know, I don't want to go to school, and some of them really play up. And I've been up onto communities when I was had a lot to do with the Aboriginal things, and I used to travel up for the government and go up to communities and that. And I used to sit down there with them kids, you know, and that's not. I said, no, I said, you sit there, I'm talking. And that's the only way the older people teach, you know. And that's where the elders of the community, you see the elders of the community now, some of them poor beggars, it's hard. And even out in the community, like you got your grandparents and great-grandparents, and they say something, well, and when they say something, your mother, and you know, as you go down the generations of line there, well, they're the ones that have the knowledge, and if they think, you know, and it used to get I got from my grandmother. My grandmother taught me to corroborate, actually. Me and my young cousin, he was the same age, and he lived across. This is when I was born up in Outback Creek, and children. And that's how the littlies are taught. And you go out with your grandmothers and all that at that time, and we had a creek there, and they used to throw their fishing line in the creek. And of course, kids being kids, they never change with the Aboriginal or Arabs or who you are, you know. Kids are chasing one another one around, and you're supposed to stay in the woods, but you don't always do that. Normally, 90% of the time, but other time. So my cousin was chasing me, and I jumped over the fishing lines, you know, they're sitting there, the fishing line. And it's true too. They will not, my grandmother and my old aunties and all the other ones, they were older than me then, but you know, they were out there fishing. They'd roll up their fishing line. That was the end of it today. And they reckoned that you wouldn't catch it. They never did. You wouldn't catch any more fish because see, us kids were jumping, and they reckoned it's the vibes of the thing around the fishing line, around there, when you go across their fishing line. And that was the old Aboriginal way. So, I mean, we got a whip under the ear, don't take me down to the creek again for a long time. But that was it. You were banned from going out, and I mean, to go out like that for that was wonderful. You know what I mean? For a kid, we had nothing else to go to. We was living out there. It was good to be with grandmother and go down there, and you could do things in the bush which you'd find, and you learn things from your grandmother and the other old people, what was in that bush, what you could eat, berries and different things. So it was, in a way, it was a wonderful outing because you learn about country and different foods, and you learn about the animals, what you could do and what you couldn't do. But you definitely had to take notice of your elders, whether they were Aboriginal or otherwise. You always showed respect to the older people, and it doesn't matter. You didn't have to be right. Anybody pulled you up and spoke to you and asked you something, you had to be polite to them.
Do you think racism is still as rampant now as it was back then?
No, I don't think it is. Really. You know, being out in the public now, you know, myself, I've been, you know, here and there and everywhere and out at different things and travelling around. But racism is not, especially now, and even when I was younger, when we first started they start to realise, people start to realise, Australia realised that there was Aboriginals here.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of that then. We were brought up to respect other people, my parents and all of our, 99% of our people down here, the local people, and most any new ones that come into the community. We've only got this about colour in these later years, you know, like what's the name, and we were always brought up to respect other people, our family, and 90% of our Aboriginal people here in South the Island people, we were all brought up the same way. And I went to private school, state school up here, and if a new kid come to school, they called you black, the headmaster would have them, and then we'd have them. The teachers, from the headmaster, this was it, because, you know, they never tolerated anybody called anyone black or names. You were dragged up. And I mean, and the headmaster, he could lay it into you with that strap around your legs. I tell you, he had the power to pull you into gear, and you didn't. Or he'd get your parents and bring them in. But people, you know, you had something went wrong, and your parents, it had to be serious. And the parents, you know, you'd go up to they'd come to the school, and they'd go and see the headmaster and pull it into gear. And you'd be black, white or brindle. You know, the parents would come and see about a problem that it had to be a serious thing in a way. You know what I mean to say? A sort of serious thing. It wasn't just a minor little thing. The kid go home, oh, the teacher done this. You know, it wasn't that at all. It had to be like it would be classified. You'd all go home and have a word. But if it was a serious thing, parents, I seen them come up there and stop in the school. Us kids were waiting for Tommy Rowe. He was a big man. He was South Sea Island bloke, and he was built like this, like a and he picked on this other new teacher. He came from Brisbane. I can't think of his name. It was all in the paper about him. He had a bad name, and he made a racist comment about Kevin Rowe. He'd be the same age as my brother down here. Let's look at him now. And Kevin was going like this. You know how kids do in the, you do your toes, you know, before you go to school. They're all lined up, you know, you're lined up to go into school and teach you right, march and all that jazz back in those times. He was just going like that with his tail. This arrogant teacher, he was a new one, so he wasn't one of our old teachers because they'd retired. And he said, what do you think you're doing, Robe? You're digging for guanas. That's how much he knew about a guana. This is a teacher, digging for guanas, you know. And this is what he said, but just to insult this child. I'm sure that he must have known. We might not have, he was such an idiot. He might not have known about guanas running around, living underground or something. So he said, what are you doing, Robe? Digging for guanas. He wanted to belittle this. Now, this fellow was the same age as my brother here that was now, Kevin. Well, talk about a hoo-ha. When he went home, so, you know, he belittled him. We were all lined up to go into school, every grade and all the kids at school. He just belittled him, and of course down here, you know, apart from Miss Coxon with her picture theatre, there was no colour. Any kid called you black. My old saying was, which I run by the rule and I gave many of it out, you know, anybody called me black, I'd give them a bunch of fives and we talk about it afterwards. That was my method, and I lived by that, mate. That's how we did it. You know, most of them, don't you dare call me black, you know. We used to I didn't just go up and slap. I used to give them a good. I had 5 brothers, so I knew all about it. And then I'd, you know, I'd have them on the ground. And I would, darling. I suppose, but I'm telling you the truth, that's how it was, you know, and I didn't, because, you know, we were all taught, in our family, you don't go and lay your hand on anybody. The rules are, you know, we brought up with, what's the name in that sense. But if anybody wanted to give you a lip, you could upend them from anywhere. And that, even though my mother said, oh, you know, no, you shouldn't have done this, should have gone. Oh, but Mum, I wasn't going to take it. My dad was doing a good job. He was in my corner. He said, yes, well, I told you that you're not to put up with anyone. Mum was, you know, she believed in, what's the name, if anybody, she would have been out their throat too. My mother was Sri Lankan. She was born out here. But my dad was the Aboriginal. You know, I sort of carrying rice on that side and the kangaroo on the other side, so I was pretty lucky, you know. We could carry the kangaroo, you know. But that's part of my life, darling. You would want to hear some of the rest of it, I won't tell you that. But no, that's it. But you know, as I said, I had a wonderful life here, and that's why I always wanted to come back and live in. This is my country from my father's side, Butchulla people, you know. But you know, the people, we were very lucky to live in here, and with the community. It was really a good community, you know what I mean?
I hope you found that chat very informative. If you're interested in learning more about Butchulla culture and traditions, we have quite a lot of materials here in the Fraser Coast Libraries. A really great start is The Legends of Moonee Jarl. When this book was published in 1964 by Jacaranda Press, it was the very first Indigenous children's book in the country. Written by Wilf Reeves and illustrated by Olga Miller, it is a real treasure. It tells the creation stories of the Butchulla people, and it is something that the whole community can be extremely proud of.